Dear Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy, I've taken note of the hunger strikes in London over the past few weeks and would like to weigh in because I believe the actions of the strikers may have a disparate impact on how ordinary incarcerated persons' grievances are addressed. As we know, a hunger strike is a deliberate refusal of food as a form of protest. Historically, it has been used by individuals who lack access to other means of descent, most often by those who are incarcerated. This raises an important question whether the UK should capitulate to the demands of the Palestine Action hunger strikers. Sociologist Amanda Machine describes self starvation as a performance, not simply an act of suffering. As she writes, deliberate hunger can function as a theatrical display meant to attract and sustain public gaze, an act where the deterioration of the body itself becomes the spectacle. When such protests are viewed through this lens, hunger strike appears as darkly theatrical events wherein the audience stage and the performer's body intertwine. This interplay, as Machine suggests, can enrich democracy and paradoxically turn life itself into a medium of political expression through unalivement. Yet the physiological consequences of self starvation are undeniable. Prolonged food refusal severely disrupts nearly every organ system and can lead to a cascade of irreversible damage. As stated in the literature, hunger strike causes muscle weakness, vulnerability to infections and psychological problems, and eventually organ failure. One should note by refusing food or fluids and food in the case of what is called a dry hunger strike, protesters put their lives in danger, risking permanent damage to their health and eventually unalivement. It follows that a hunger strike cannot easily be labeled a non-violent act. As Candice Delmas argues, hunger strikes are best understood as a bodily weapon because it is a violent form of, quote, self-destructive resistance, end quote. The ethical problem intensifies when public attention and sympathy are distributed unequally. For example, in both the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, human rights organizations and NGOs often rally to the cause of collective and media attractive strikers, while isolated, obscure detained persons do not receive the same advocacy and visibility. Indeed, unrecognized or unpopular hunger strikers risk being abandoned, left to decline without observation or support because their cause fails to attract the necessary public gaze. Therefore, capitulating to the current Palestine Action hunger strikers risk setting a dangerous precedent where individual activists or incarcerated persons partake in this kind of protest because they believe it will summon a public official to meet with them. This is essentially what hunger strikers seek: to be heard and for the public to take action. But we all know that in most cases, a special rapporteur, an official with a human rights agency, or a public official won't be able to respond to all persons who partake in a hunger strike. For instance, Bobby Sands, a member of the Irish Republican Army, starved himself to death in 1981 after 66 days on a hunger strike. Like the Palestine Action incarcerated persons, Sands demanded to be treated as a political prisoner rather than a criminal. While labels are indeed harmful, I cannot unsee the recent footage showing Palestine Action members wielding sledgehammers against stewards, instilling fear and physical injury, subsequently sledgehammering one on the ground. Let me be clear. I do not argue that all hunger strikers are violent. My argument is that the hunger striking is medically perilous. What is also harmful is when activists claim Palestine action protesters wrongfully are being held incommunicado. My understanding is that criminal trial in the United Kingdom does not come fast without a defendant pleading guilty or accepting a plea bargain. To date, the hunger strikers have made several demands, including, quote, ending censorship, which is also disinformation. The claims that Palestine Action's demands are being ignored constitutes a form of disinformation. This is evidenced by the fact that their stated objectives have been extensively disseminated and circulated by public officials, human rights organizations, and various activist groups. If widely circulated by others, especially by celebrities like Greta Thunberg, Kneecap, Jeremy Corbyn, and Zara Sultana, then there is no censorship. Following guidance from the UK National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, I recommend that qualified health professionals be authorized to access these individuals promptly, where they can cautiously and gradually reintroduce nutrients to protesters who have refused food for 5 days or more. In parallel, it is vital that these protesters retain communication with their legal representatives and be treated with dignity, regardless of the political context of their protest. Next, I recommend that the strikes be monitored to ensure the hunger strikers' safety. While the European Court of Human Rights affirms a state's right to intervene medically to rehydrate and feed hunger strikers, when life preservation is at stake, I am reminded that doing so can constitute, quote, a non-consensual invasion, end quote, of the striker's bodily autonomy. Therefore, a balanced approach must prevail. Each hunger striker should be invited to sign a voluntary statement of non-intervention, confirming their intellectual understanding and acceptance of medical risks. In this way, the state upholds both autonomy and duty of care, protecting life where consent allows and liberty where it does not. Thank you for your attention to this matter.